من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا رسول الله. صلى الله عليك وعلى آل بيتك المظلومين الغر الميامين. روحي وأرواح العالمين لكم الفداء. صلى الله عليك يا مولاي وابن مولاي يا أبا عبد الله، يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة ويا عبرة كل مؤمن ومؤمنة. غريب يا مظلوم كربلاء. سيدي يا ليتنا كنا معكم فنفوز والله فوزا عظيما. ورد في كتاب الحسين عليه السلام إلى بعض أعيان البصرة أنه قال: أدعوكم إلى كتاب الله وسنة نبيه، فإن السنة قد أميتت وإن البدعة قد أحيت. وإن تسمعوا لي وإن تسمعوا قولي وتطيعوا أمري أهدكم سبيل الرشاد. For the hastening of the return of the Savior, the Master, the Avenger, Al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan al-Askari, recite aloud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We said last night that one of the most devastating side effects of the coup that ensued after the demise of the Holy Prophet, may God's peace and blessings be upon him and his immaculate household, was that innovations started to sprout all over this religion. Things that had no basis in God's revelation, in the religion of Islam, in the Holy Quran, or the traditions of the Holy Prophet, which crept their way into the religion disguised as Islam. And that these innovations were made, believe it or not, in broad daylight, without a speck of shame. Those who introduced these perversions and these, in fact, changes to the religion of Islam, did so with complete impunity. They didn't care what others thought. They did what they felt allowed them to restore the pre-Islamic pagan traditions and destroy Islam from within. Which is why Imam al-Hussein عليه السلام makes this statement in a letter that he sent, and addressed the letter to some of the noble people in the city of Basra. Because when the Imam left the holy city of Medina, heading towards Mecca, and then from Mecca heading towards Kufa, the Imam made several attempts to call people to join his mission and to accompany him on this journey. Those calls came in the form of sermons delivered to the general public in Mecca, for example. And those calls also came in the form of letters that were sent to key individuals and demographics, and in this case, noblemen in important strategic cities like the city of Basra, in which the Imam basically articulated his mission statement and invited people and summoned those individuals to come and join him, giving everyone a chance. At its very core, Imam al-Hussein is trying to guide people. He is attempting to give people the opportunity to have their sins expunged, which is why he went after the good and the bad. He invited Habib ibn Mudahir personally, but he also invited Abdullah ibn Umar, also personally. Habib ibn Mudahir responded positively to the invitation to paradise by the master of the youth of paradise, whereas people like Abdullah ibn Umar and Abdullah al-Ju'fi and al-Mundhir ibn Jarud and others refused to accept the invitation of Imam al-Hussein. This particular letter, with which I started the lecture, was addressed to the noblemen of Basra. One of those individuals that the Imam specifically addressed and sent, so back then you didn't have any postal addresses, you didn't have a very efficient means of delivering letters addressed to specific individuals, but what you had was something perhaps better, although not as efficient. You would send a message by using a messenger. So the messenger would track you down, or rather track the recipient of the letter down, and it's almost like what you have today in the form of a court summons, where the messenger or the courier or the mailman has to guarantee that the person to whom the letter is addressed signs for it, ensuring that the letter has been in fact delivered. Al-Mundhir ibn Jarud was a nobleman. He was also considered to be among the people who claimed to be Shia, meaning that at least on face value, he claimed to be among the followers and partisans of Imam al-Hussein. So the Imam addressed him individually. He sent this letter. Before I read you the passage of the letter that is the subject of my talk, it's important to note that Al-Mundhir ibn Jarud, when he received the Imam's messenger and received his letter, you have to take into account the fact that the letter was from Imam al-Hussein, who was a target of the government authorities of Yazid. So that made the letter of a highly classified nature. The letter was a secret message from Imam al-Hussein, a revolutionary leader, if you like to call him that, to someone that the Imam deemed worthy of having this message delivered to him. And yet, look at the treachery of this man. Look at the treasonous nature of this wicked individual, Al-Mundhir ibn Jarud, because he then, after receiving the letter, he then took the messenger of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam and delivered them both to the governor of Basra, who was Yazid's appointee to Basra. And that led to the hanging and public execution of the messenger of Imam al-Hussein because of what this man did. When it comes to Imam al-Hussein, some people win and achieve victory while others lose and get nothing but eternal damnation. That's one of the features of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. When you come across his caravan, you are presented with two very clear choices. Do you want to join the caravan of Imam al-Hussein and do things that would enlist you in the column of those who supported the Imam, or do you choose the other camp? There is no middle ground. There is no gray area when it comes to Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. That's why I've said this before and I'll say it again. Whenever you're faced with a choice and you don't know which direction to take, you don't know what to do, one of the things that gives you incredible moral clarity is to say and ask yourself, what would Hussein do? At this exact moment, if Imam al-Hussein was the one making this choice, what would he choose? This illuminates your heart. Try it and you'll see what I'm talking about. Anyway, Al-Mundhir ibn Jarud chose the fires of hell so that he could get a few more years of wellness in this life. He condemned himself to an eternity of punishment and misery. In this letter, Imam al-Hussein basically says to the noblemen of Basra that I am inviting you to the sunnah, to the tradition of Rasulullah. I'm inviting you to the way of God's messenger. And then he said to them, do you not see how the prophetic tradition has been destroyed, has been tarnished, has been killed, while innovation has been revived under the tyrannical rule of these despots, culminating in Yazid ibn Muawiyah? Then the Imam said, if you follow me, ahdikum sabil al-rashad, I shall guide you to the path of righteousness. Following the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam has this feature. It saves you from the effort of having to choose right from wrong, or right from what is more right, or wrong from what is even worse. That's what submission gives you. Haven't you noticed that when you walk into a supermarket, there's way too many options? And that confuses you sometimes? You don't know where to start, you don't know where to end. By the way, this is all by design. Supermarkets, grocery stores, department stores, malls are subjected to some of the most vigorous marketing research found anywhere in the world. The amount of think tanks and research institutions devoted to marketing, what they call behavioral economics, and manipulating the shopper to spend more time shopping. For example, by turning on happy music in the background. Studies say that if a store has music being played in the background, especially music that has a rather happy mood that reminds you of Christmas time and whatnot, that usually translates into an extra 15 to 20 minutes of shopping time, which means you'll be spending more money there, as opposed to having a shop that simply relies on the quality of its products. That's not good enough. They need you to stay more. They need you to spend more. They need you to buy more. That's why shopping carts, again, they've done studies about this. The size of shopping carts increase by about 20% every 10 years. Haven't you noticed that? Because the bigger the cart, or what you call a trolley, the bigger it is, the more you feel like you need to fill it in to justify why you went to shopping in the first place. Because if you only put 3 items in there, you kind of feel embarrassed. Or you kind of feel that you wasted your time by coming all the way here. So you have this sort of subliminal indicator that tells you you need to fill up more and more. You still have a lot more space left. Great minds are devoted to manipulating each and every one of you, making you do things despite you having no interest in doing them in the first place. That's why they put milk all the way at the end of the grocery store, even though it's one of the most popular products. Why do you think that is? Why do you think it's hard to find the refrigerator where they put the milk in? Because they want you to go through the entire grocery store, the entire supermarket, and pick up more things along the way before you get there. It's cultural manipulation at its worst. Making you do things even though you had no interest. Making you buy things even though you didn't want them. Thousands of tools, mechanisms, tactics, strategies are employed to manipulate you, to fool you into doing things you're not supposed to. This is when it comes to marketing and shopping, let alone your cultural values. I'm involved in this project, which, if you don't know about it, you really should. And essentially, it's an online Islamic seminary with a unique twist. Number one, because it's online. It's very convenient. You can follow the classes live wherever you are. In fact, we have people in countries that I couldn't pinpoint on the map, from South America to across the entire planet. So it's very convenient in that sense. And there is classes that have been customized for a Western community that gives them basically what they need, as opposed to the things that may not necessarily be of benefit to them that are traditionally taught in the Islamic seminary. Plus it's in English, plus it's free. So I would encourage you all to join up. It's called the John the Martyr Islamic Seminary. After who? John, the slave of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. May God's peace and blessings be upon him, in honor of this great man. One of the classes that I teach there is called Islamic Culture. And in this class, I took about 3 or 4 sessions, if I'm not mistaken, perhaps more, talking all about the ways with which you are manipulated into changing your value systems. And it happens without you even knowing about it. It happens so slowly and in a manner that you find yourself like the boiling frog metaphor. Have you heard about that? Essentially, it's a metaphor. They say that if you have a pot of water that's boiling and you throw a frog in there, what's going to happen? The frog's going to attempt to jump right out because it's boiling water. It's going to boil to death. However, if you put the frog in lukewarm or room temperature water and you slowly bring the water to boil within, let's say, 20-30 minutes, the frog will never realize what's happening to it, because the gradual change in temperature is so slow that by the time the frog realizes that this water is in fact so hot that it's about to boil, it's already too late. It boils to death. That, brothers and sisters, is what's happening to all of us. Our culture is being manipulated. Our values are being distorted. Our faith is being robbed in broad daylight, and we have no idea. And then we wonder why, when the 12th Imam reappears, there's going to be a group of people who consider themselves to be followers of the Imam, who consider themselves to be Shia in the holy city of Kufa, no less, who will tell him, عُدْ يَا ابْنَ فَاطِمَ مَنْ حَيْثُ أَتَيْتَ. Go back, we don't need you. Our lives are good, comfortable, we figured it all out. We got it all figured out. Open your eyes. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, مَنْ نَامَ لَمْ يُنَمْ عَنْهُ. If you're dozing off, if you're sleeping, the enemy is working overtime. The enemy is designing new ways, new systems, new strategies to manipulate you and to take your values away from you. And that's what I want to talk about in the remainder of my time tonight. That these values were so distorted that Imam al-Hussein had no choice but to rise up, which is why he wrote to Al-Mundhir and others in Basra to say, look, if you follow me, I will lead you to the path of righteousness. Don't try and figure things out on your own. Have submission, surrender to my instructions, and you'll have nothing to worry about. And that's why I've said in the previous nights, that is the very core of Islam. Al-Islamu huwa al-taslim. Islam means submission. It's not about what makes sense to you. It's not about whether it falls within your logical framework. It's not about whether you find it rational or not. It's about submitting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, come what may, whatever it is. So many things in our jurisprudence makes absolutely no sense. In fact, the vast majority of it makes no sense. In one incident, I believe it was Mansur al-Dawaniqi, if I'm not mistaken, the Abbasid Caliph, who said to Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, he said to him, those performing the pilgrimage, going to Hajj, while in the state of Ihram, when they're traveling towards Mecca, they're not allowed to cover their heads. This applies to men, not women. But the men are not allowed to cover their heads. They're not allowed to carry an umbrella. They're not allowed to sit in a car which has a roof. According to many scholars, this is in fact their fatwa. Unless you have absolutely no choice, in which case they say, well, if you have to get into a bus or a car, then you do so, but you got to sacrifice a sheep. You got to feed the poor if you're going to do this, because it's haram. In other words, you can't do it by choice. So then he says to the Imam, why is it that the pilgrims can't cover their heads, but as soon as they step into Mecca, they can then cover their heads? Meaning they can carry an umbrella, not wear a hat, but they can carry an umbrella. They could go into a house or what have you. He said to the Imam, what's the difference? What difference does it make? If I'm outside of the border of Mecca, I can't do something, but then as soon as I step into the border of Mecca, I can. What difference? How is this rational? What's the difference? The Imam said to him, the difference is, that's what the Holy Prophet said. That's it. End of story, end of discussion. That's what submission means. That's what surrender means. That's what Islam means. It doesn't make sense to you. Who are you? Who are you? You think you have all the mental capacity in the world? So many things you don't understand about this world. So many things you don't even understand about your own body. You have to check whether your heart is on the right side of your chest or the left side. And you want to know about the celestial realms? You want to know about the heavens and metaphysics? And you want to know about death and what happens after? Who do you think you are? Anyway. So the sunnah of the Prophet is what was so distorted. In fact, I mentioned a couple of examples last night about the things that they manipulated, the things that they changed. But I think by far, the worst innovation that they introduced into Islam was the fact that they disregarded and abolished al-Ghadir. The fact that they sidelined Amir al-Mu'mineen. As Sayyid Baqir al-Hindi, rahmatullah alayh, a poet in the holy city of Najaf, is famous for saying this: كل غدر وقول إفك وزور هو فرع لجحد نص الغدير. He says every innovation, every lie, every concoction, every transgression, every murder, every drop of blood is only branched out from the main trunk of this accursed tree, which was the denial of the prophetic statement on the day of Ghadir. That was the root of the problem. Everything else that happened after emanated from that. Fatima al-Zahra alayhi السلام in her Fadakiyya sermon, in fact, says to them, أنسيتم قول رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله في غدير خم. It was only 70 days between Ghadir Khum and when they ambushed the house of Fatima and they waged the coup d'etat against Amir al-Mu'mineen. 70 days, 2 months. What's wrong with you? Is your memory so weak that you forgot all about that? أنسيتم قول رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله في غدير خم من كنت مولاه فعلي. Say it with me. مولاه. Did you forget all about that? And so it was distortion after distortion, manipulation after manipulation, innovation after innovation, to the point where it all came boiling down on the sand dunes of Karbala on the day of Ashura in the year 61 after the Blessed Hijrah, when Imam al-Hussein came to Karbala and he saw an ocean of soldiers all ready to shed his sacred blood. And you know what's the worst part about that? Is that the people who came to kill the Imam, the army of Yazid, they weren't a bunch of Christians, Jews, Buddhists, atheists. They prayed Salat al-Jama'ah. They recited the Adhan beforehand. Which is why Imam al-Hussein, that's what really hurts, right? Imam al-Hussein stood up and he said to them, that person you just named and you just gave testimony and bore witness that he is the messenger of God in the Adhan just a moment ago, that man, is he not my grandfather? They all said, yes, he is. They couldn't deny it. He said, okay, so that person you just named and you pray in his name, and without mentioning him in your prayers are not accepted. You all acknowledge that? They said yes. The Imam said, okay, did he not say Al-Hasan wal-Husayn Sayyida Shababi Ahl al-Jannah? They all said yes, he did. Hassan and Hussein are the masters of the youth of paradise. The Imam said, is there another Hassan and Hussein than me and my brother? Tell me. If this is about another set of brothers called Hassan and Hussein, explain it to me. Or is this about me and my brother? They all said, yes, it's about you and your brother. But we will kill you anyway. Even after praying and doing ta'qibat as-salat. Na'udhu billah. Na'udhu billah. Anyway, we don't have a lot of time, brothers and sisters. We've been talking about sajdat ziyarat Ashura, right? Those of you who have been following the series. And about the factors that contribute to your persistence on the path of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. وَثَبِّتْ لِي قَدَمَ صَدْقٍ عِنْدَكَ مَعَ الْحُسَيْنِ. Oh Allah, preserve me on the path of Hussein. Don't ever leave me to my whims and my desires. Don't abandon me. And this, as I said, we've mentioned a few factors, submission being one of them, right? In the remainder of my time, perhaps the next 10 minutes or so, I want to talk about one more factor, and that is to remain on the path of righteousness, you need to ensure, and I cannot overemphasize the word ensure, draw 1,000 red lines underneath it. You must ensure that what you consume is halal and not haram. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Prophet Adam, before religions were revealed, before any sharia was given to the Prophet, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him one commandment, and that was the first order given by God to the first man. What was it? He said, وَلَا تَقْرَبَا هَذِهِ الشَّجَرَةِ فَتَكُونَا مِنَ الظَّالِمِينَ. Don't draw near this tree, for you will be among the oppressors. Don't even draw near it. Inshallah, tomorrow I'll elaborate on this specific word. Why Allah says don't draw near it instead of saying don't eat from this tree, which would have been more straightforward, right? I'll elaborate on this a little tomorrow because we don't have a lot of time left. Which is why Islam emphasizes on this point to an incredible degree. Let me read a few hadiths for you. First is a hadith by the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. لَرَدُّ دَانِقٍ مِّنْ حَرَامٍ يَعْدِلُ عند الله سبحانه 70,000 حجة مبرورة. Avoiding a coin of haram. The smallest denomination in those days was daniq. The Holy Prophet says that if you know this is haram, even though it's a tiny, tiny thing, if you avoid it, if you avoid consuming it, eating it, or taking it, that is better than 70,000 Hajj pilgrimage to the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that is accepted. Allahu Akbar. Number one. Number two, the Holy Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi says, أكثر ما تلج به أمتي النار الأجوفان. The two primary reasons that my followers, my ummah, fall into the inferno because of these two reasons are what? The two empty vessels, the Prophet calls them. Al-ajwafan. What are they? Al-batn wal-farj. The stomach and the private parts. He says, because of these two factors, most of my ummah, not the nations of other prophets, my own, will enter the hellfire. Which is why Amir al-Mu'mineen says, إِذَا أَرَادَ اللَّهُ بِعَبْدٍ خَيْرًا. If Allah wishes to bestow good fortune on one of His creatures, what does He do to him? أَعَفَّ بَطْنَهُ وَفَرْجَهُ. Allah will provide him, sustain him with what he can fulfill these two vessels, his stomach and his private parts. In other words, Allah will sustain him with food so that he doesn't have to eat what is haram. A job that is legitimate and halal and that pays well enough to pay the bills so that he doesn't have to extend his hand on that which is haram. A wife or a spouse with which they can complete each other so that they wouldn't have to engage in that which is haram. If Allah wants to bestow good fortune on someone, He does this to him. May Allah allow those who are not married to be married by the grace and blessing of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein and Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, inshaAllah. Those who are looking for a spouse especially, there is no reason to delay it, brothers and sisters. There's no reason to be too picky. There's no reason to have too many preconditions. Follow the sunnah of Rasulullah. Follow the tradition of the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt. Deen, akhlaq, 2 boxes to tick, nothing else. Don't look for things that only cause misery. Let me mention this hadith since we're on the subject. The Imam says that if a person marries a woman, and I guess it applies on both genders, not just women. The Imam says if a man marries a woman for her beauty, رَأَى فِيهَا مَا يَكْرَهُ, he will surely see something about her that is hideous. In other words, you wanted her for her beauty, well, this is what you get. Whether it's bad akhlaq, or whether it's a terrible trait, or some kind of characteristic, something will happen to make him regret making this decision, or her. If she marries him because he's super cut, because he's very fit, because he's got a chiseled chin, because of this, because of that, you will see something truly hideous and disgusting down the line. وَإِذَا تَزَوَّجْ, and if he marries her or she marries him for her wealth or because of the family or because they come from a prominent tribe or because of any of these things, any of these social constructs, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, you know what? You wanted her for the money, or she wanted him for the money. In that case, I will leave you to it. If something went wrong down the line, if something didn't quite work out, if the marriage broke down or whatever, or if you became poor, don't come to me asking for help. وَكَلَهُ اللَّهُ إِلَى نَفْسِهِ. You see the theme here, by the way, before I mention the last part of the hadith? There's a consistent theme. The theme is, if you try to satisfy your desires on your own terms, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, I will leave you to yourself. Don't come to me then. But if you have trust in God, if you leave it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's a whole other situation. Which brings us to the third portion of the hadith. The Imam says, and if a man marries a woman, and I guess we can also say, if a woman marries a man, for their religion, Allah shall grant them both beauty and wealth. Meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will satisfy you. He will look after you. Because you put your trust in Him, He won't abandon you. He won't disappoint you. You said, Ya Allah, I don't really know much about this person. He's come knocking on our door, he's proposing. I don't really know much about him. How much money he makes? Not much. Maybe he's even out of a job. Maybe he just got fired. Maybe he's studying at university. It's too early for him to get a job. He doesn't have any job prospects at this point in time. What's going to happen in 4 years? That's what every parent asks, right? That's what every young bachelorette asks. What's going to happen? 4 years' time, 5 years' time? Are we not going to have a good living? Are we not going to have a good income? That's where you're supposed to put your trust in Allah. That is one of those areas where you say, Ya Allah, I don't know. I have accepted him because of his akhlaq and his religion. I don't care about anything else. The rest I'll leave to you. The rest I'll leave to you. You think you can plan your life better than God can? Wallahi, there is so many surprises that will come your way. Na'udhu billah. If you choose to take things into your own hands. I can't even begin to think of all the scenarios where things could go so terribly wrong that you'll regret the day that you met each other. Leave it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and see how He won't disappoint you. See how He will look after you. عَجِبْتُ لِأَمْرِ الْمُؤْمِنِ كُلُّهُ خَيْرٌ. The Imam says, I am amazed at the affairs of a believer, how it always works out in his or her best interest. If you're a believer, you have faith in Allah, you put your trust in Him, it will work out. Of course, there might be ups and downs, there might be challenges, that's the nature of life. No one has a perfect life. But ultimately, at the very end, when it really matters, when you're lowered into your grave, that's when you'll say, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah. All you gotta have is some submission. Submit to Allah, submit to the Imam of your time, and you will have nothing to worry about. As we recite in dua on the dua of Tuesdays, if I'm not mistaken. Allahumma ij'alni min awliya'aka فإن أولياءك لا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون. Oh Allah, make me among the people under your guardianship, the people that seek refuge in you, the people that turn to you instead of turning to their own intelligence and their own plots and schemes and insurance policies. Make Allah your insurance policy and He will not disappoint, wallahi. Anyway, let's go to Karbala. Tomorrow, the 7th of Muharram, suddenly became a much more difficult day for Hussein and his camp. Why? Because it's the day they prevented the camp of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein from reaching the water. From the 7th of Muharram, they had no access to water whatsoever. Allahu Akbar. The treachery of Bani Umayyah, the vile, vicious nature of this accursed tree, this family of animals who would show no mercy to women and children and even the 6-month-old infant. Suddenly it became much, much harder for the camp of Hussein to withstand the onslaught. And so everybody looked toward the only hope they had on the day of Ashura. Who was their hope? When the women and children were crying and wailing, what were they calling for? Who were they calling for? SubhanAllah, every time I step into the sacred mausoleum of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein, I can almost feel and hear the cries of the children saying, Al-Atash, Al-Atash, Al-Atash. And so who did the children turn to? They turned to the Saqqa, Aba al-Fadl al-Abbas, bi-abi huwa wa ummi. He was known to be the one to deliver water since he was a child. Whenever anybody asked for water, who would run to fetch it? It was little Abbas. It was the son of al-Baneen. They say that when Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas was born, his mother al-Baneen brought this infant and she showed him to Imam al-Hussein and said, here you go, Ya Aba Abdullah, Sayyidi wa Mawlai. I brought the one to be sacrificed for you. Everybody knew what their mandate was. Everyone knew what Abbas was put on this earth to do, because Amir al-Mu'mineen had said to Aqil when he was looking for a wife to marry, he said, khirli imra'atan min al-fuhulati min al-Arab. I want a woman who has such a noble family, a noble lineage. I want her to give birth to brave children, because I don't want Hussein to be left all alone on the plains of Karbala. Allahu Akbar. Which is why on the eve of Ashura, Abbas was the one guarding the tents. And while he was guarding, obviously all the women, the children could rest and they could go and sleep comfortably, knowing that Uncle Abbas is the one defending us. He will ensure that no vile creature can bring any harm to us. When all of a sudden Abbas notices a dark shadow approaching, he said, stop, whoever you are, you should know that I am Abbas. But the dark shadow wouldn't stop. It came closer and closer, only to reveal itself as Lady Zainab. As soon as Abbas realized that this was Zainab, he wanted to get off from his horse. My mistress Zainab, Sayyidati, Mawlati. Zainab said, no, Abbas, please stay on your horse. فَإِنَّهُ أَقَرَّ لِعَيْنِي. I wish to feel proud looking at you tall, sitting on your horse like that. He must have reminded her of her father, Amir al-Mu'mineen. Abbas said, my mistress, tell me, command me. What do you want from me at this night? Why aren't you resting? Please get some rest. After tomorrow, God knows what's going to happen to you. Zainab said to him, Aba al-Fadl, I heard that you've received an immunity plea from the enemy. Allahu Akbar. When Shibn ibn al-Jawshan came and said, Ayna banu ukhtina? Where are my nephews? Referring to Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. Shimr, some say, obviously, it appears that he was there to save people that he considered to be from his tribe, right? al-Banin was from the same tribe as Shimr. And so it looks like he was there out of sympathy to save them because they were related to him. But perhaps the truth is the reason he came to offer immunity to Abbas and his brothers is because he was afraid of what Abbas would do should he stand at opposite ends on the day of Ashura. Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas refused to even acknowledge him. Imam al-Hussein told him, answer him. وَإِن كَانَ فَاسِقًا, I know he's treacherous, but it's okay, go. Imam al-Hussein wants to show the world who Abbas was. Abbas went up to him, said, what do you want? He said, I have good news. I have brought you and your 3 brothers a plea bargain, an immunity contract. Should you choose to leave the camp of Hussein, we will not pursue you, we will not kill you. How does Abbas respond? He said, لَعَنَكَ اللَّهُ وَلَعَنَ أَمَانَكَ. May God curse you and your immunity. You give me immunity, whereas the son of the daughter of Rasulullah has no immunity. وَابْنُ بِنْتِ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ لَا أَمَانَ لَهُ. Get away from me. And so Zainab came to Abu al-Fadl on that night, trying to test the waters with Abbas, ensuring that Abbas doesn't abandon them. Not that he would, but Zainab wants to give him that reinforcement, that moral support. So she told him the story of how her father Amir al-Mu'mineen chose al-Banin as his wife, trying to create offspring that would defend Hussein on the day of Ashura. Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas put his foot in the stirrup of the horse. He pushed it so hard so as to tear it, and then he said, أَتُشَجِّعِينَنِي وَأَنَا ابْنُ مَنْ تَعْلَمِينَ. My mistress Zainab, are you trying to give me bravery when you know that my father is Ali? Wallah لَأَنْعُمَنَّكِ عَيْنَا. By God, I will make you proud tomorrow. And so when he came to Abu Abdullah trying to ask for permission, what did Imam al-Hussein say to him? Remember, this is after everybody's been killed. Akbar was gone, the companions were gone, everyone was gone. What does the Imam say to him? He said to him, Akhi, anta hamilu liwa'i. My brother, you're my one-man army. You are my flag bearer. وَأَنْتَ كَبْشُ كَتِيبَتِي. You are all I got, Abbas. You're all I have. If you go, I have no army any longer. If something were to happen to you, what would happen to the women and the children, Ya Abbas? Abu al-Fadl insisted, لَقَدْ ضَاقَ صَدْرِي مِنْ هَؤُلَاءِ الْقَوْمِ. I just saw all my brothers killed. I am depressed. I can't take it anymore. Let me go. So Imam al-Hussein gave him permission. He went into battle. Some say that the way Abbas kept Imam al-Hussein aware that he was still alive was in this beautiful manner. He would say, he would call out his brother Imam al-Hussein, and he would say, Yabna Fatimat al-Zahra. Imam al-Hussein would then respond by saying, Yabna Ali al-Murtada. You are the son of Ali. Abbas would say, Yabna Rasulullah. And so on. And they were speaking to each other. They were communicating. When all of a sudden Abu Abdullah heard the cry of Abbas, saying for the first time, Akhi, أدرك أخاك. For the first time, Abbas calls his brother by calling him, oh my brother, come and help me. What had happened to Abu al-Fadl? As Imam al-Hussein approached him, they say the Imam then bent down and carried something. They looked closer, it was the right hand of Abbas. Then the Imam approached him even more, picked up something, it was the left hand of Abbas. By the time Imam al-Hussein reached Abbas, Abbas was laying on the ground. He couldn't any longer see. I don't want to say why, but Abbas couldn't see anymore. When the Imam approached him, Abbas said, I don't know who you are, but I ask you in whatever you worship to spare me for a moment until my brother reaches me, so that I could bid my brother farewell. Aba Abdullah said, Ana akhuka ya Aba al-Fadl. الآن انكسر ظهري وقلت حيلتي وشمت بي عدوي. I will only translate this bit. The Imam said, my enemy has rejoiced now. Do you know why? Because they surrounded Aba Abdullah and Aba al-Fadl while clapping and saying, لقد قتلنا العباس. ابا الفضل علم دارم، چه سان نشه تو بردارم، چه سان رو در حرم آرم، نه قوت در کمر دارم، ابا الفضل علم دارم. نگهبان حرم عباس، امید خواهرم عباس، پناه دخترم عباس، چه سان نشه تو بردارم. بیا برگرد خیمه ای که سکارم، منو تنها نگذار ای علم دارم. بیا برگرد خیمه ای که سکارم، منو تنها نگذار ای علم دارم، منو تنها نگذار ای علم دارم، ای علم دارم.
دیدم یه زنی رو گذاشتن توی یه چیزی مثل تابوت، آوردن کنار زری، مریض بود، آوردن کنار زری گذاشتن رو زمین. گفت آوردن جلوی این تابوت، این زنه دیدم نفس نفس میزنه، یه جوونی هی تو سرش میزد، میگه یا ابو فاضل، من تو عالم فقط همین مادرم رو دارم، هیچ کسی ندارم، شفای مادرم از تو میخوام. خودش هم نشسته بود. یه وقت دیدم نفس این زن به شماره افتاد، به خرخر افتاد. این جوونه بلند شد وایساد، گفت یا ابو فاضل، مادرم داره از دستم میره. میگفت یه وقت دیدم نفس حبس شد، بلند شد، یا ابو فاضل، مادرم رو شفا بده. به خدا اگه شفا ندی عباس بلند میشم میرم نجف، شکایت تو به بابات علی میکن. رفتم جلو گفتم جوان مؤدب باش، اینجوری آدم با عباس. گفت شیخ چی داری میگی؟ نفس این زن تو سینش بند شد. این جوون دوید از حرم بیرون، میگه دم در وایستاد، برگشت گفت عباس یا ابو فاضل، یادت باشه شفای مادرمو ندادی، دارم میرم نجف شکایت تو به بابات علی بکنم. این شیخ میگه وایستادم ببینم چی میشه. رفت، ساعتی نکشیده بود یه وقت دیدم این زن از تو تابوت تمام قامت بلند شد وایستاد رو به ذریح. شکران یا ابو فاضل، شکران یا ابو فاضل، شکران یا ابو فاضل. میگه طولی نکشید دیدم جوونم برگشت، اما گریه میکنه. رفتم جلو گفتم چته جوون؟ عباس که مادر تو شفا داد، چرا داری گریه میکنی؟ گفت شیخ دست بر. داشتم تو بیابون میدویدم و داد میزدم دیگه کسی به عباس باب الحوائج نگه. عباس باب المراد نیست، عباس باب الحوائج نیست. یه وقت دیدم یه سواری از روبرو اومد به من رسید، گفت جوون کجا میری؟ گفتم دارم میرم نجف. برای چی؟ میرم شکایت عباس رو به باباش علی بکنم، مادر منو شفا نداده. گفت برگرد شکایت عباس رو به باباش علی نکن، عباس مادر تو شفا داد، برگرد. گفتم دیگه رمق برا برگشت ندارم، نفسم بند اومده. گفت پشت مرکب من بشین من میبرم. شیخ پشت مرکبش نشستم، خودم رو جلو حرم عباس دیدم. تا به خودم اومدم دیدم اسب افسارش آزاده، خودش داره حرکت میکنه. خوب که نگاه کردم دیدم این آقا که من پشت مرکب اون نشستم دست در بدن